Good evening. This is the Town of Harwich Finance Committee meeting. It's Thursday, October 10th, 2024 at 6 o'clock. And we are meeting in the small meeting room at Town Hall. This, just for everybody's information, this meeting is being recorded. If anybody in the audience, and by the way, there is no one in the audience, but there were, and they wanted to record this meeting as well, they need to inform the chair. There's no one here. So at this moment, I'll call the meeting to order. Physically in the meeting room, we have Scott Norm, Michelle Gallucci, myself, Peter Hughes, and some guy from Alaska, Dana DaCosta. He's, I don't know, he just came in. And then on remote, we had Dan Twerk and Mark Kelleher. So I'm going to declare a quorum. Okay? All right, first item of business is to approve the minutes of September 12th, 2024. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Okay. Second? Seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll put that to a vote. Scott?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
You weren't here.
Abstain.
Dan, you weren't here, I don't think.
No.
Okay, and Mark? Mark, you and I on the minutes? Hello, Mark? Mark?
There he is. He's muted.
Mark?
Is that the recording? So he's not even on there? Or is it this the recording?
This
I'm
one's
not sure.
recording. I'll take that as a yes. All right, minutes are approved. All right, new business, website update, Michelle.
So I don't have a lot to report. I did reach out to my prior contact regarding making the website changes that we kind of discussed, and also looking for the email addresses. There's a new person apparently who has been, I don't know, hired, who has taken over this responsibility. So
Of the website.
Of the website.
Okay.
So my next step is to reach out to that person to request the changes. I have not done that yet.
Do you have that person's contact information?
I do,
Okay,
yes.
so the ball's in your court.
The ball is in my court, and I will be doing that shortly after this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so, oh, there you go, Mark. Mark, did you vote yes on the minutes?
Yes.
Now we can see you, but we can't hear you.
It's,
Unmute your mic. Oh, it is unmuted. It's muted
I'll get the
now.
mic off.
He's not driving.
Well, we'll have to do it by sign language, so it's okay.
yeah.
It's okay.
All right, next, the Capital Outlay Committee feedback. So our representatives are Mark and Scott. Was there a meeting held?
No, the first meeting is October 24th, Thursday, 3 o'clock. I will be attending in person. I think Mark will be attending as well. We haven't received materials yet, but don't know if we will ahead of the meeting, but
Okay. You know, just think about it, and I don't know what they
Yeah.
have proposed to do there, but it just occurs to me that, you know, a couple of questions just noodling if I was sitting there in that meeting. Is there anything we're doing or need to do related to storm surge or protecting our assets at the water line, that kind of thing? Or looking at down the street from Dana, the water department is down in a hole. I mean, it's, you know, they may get flooded someday. I don't know if anybody's even thinking about those things, or we're all focused on the normal stuff that tends to come up. The other one that strikes me is, because people talk about it a lot, what additional things are we thinking about doing or planning to do related to getting the town off of fossil fuels, for instance, because that's a big topic. You know, we have the big solar array out at the landfill, et cetera, but I don't know if we're planning on doing any more. I don't know if we're planning to do, making this up, electric charging stations at the beach or in Harwich Port or whatever it is. I have no idea. But I think we should at least probe those questions to see if anybody's thinking about it.
yeah.
You know?
And when there's roof replacements like there is on the horizon for one of the schools, I forget which.
Yeah, the concept this year is to try and roll, I think you'll hear, I hope you hear, and you should be asking, is to roll into the plan more understanding of what the schools really need.
Yeah,
So that, like the siding project for the middle school that came up,
Surprise.
with that, a lot of people seem sort of like, where'd that come from, you know what I mean?
right.
So they need to get themselves factored into the plan. So those are good things to follow up on. And of course, anything you guys want to
Those
follow
are
up.
good threads, yeah.
And then bring it back to us, obviously.
Yep.
Okay. Dana, did you have a?
Yeah, I have I'll do it under other, but I have an update on the state budget, and it's pretty good news for roads and schools. So I'll give that update later, but you might think about that too,
Okay.
financially.
Okay, so then anything else on that?
Can I make just a comment? So, there was a webinar, MMA webinar on capital planning.
It was a good
which
one.
It was excellent. And I recommend everybody on the FinCom watch it. In fact, I'm gonna watch it again
Yeah,
because it was really detailed and it was pretty sophisticated. And I think it's really a nice example of, so
How long did it go on for?
I wanna say an hour.
a little over an hour.
Yeah, it's on the MMA website under resources, or they post all their webinars. But it really was great. So especially for the people who are on the capital
Yeah.
outlay committee, I think Tom Kelly saw it. I think Mark saw it. Yeah. So anyway,
He's still doing the hand signal.
Yeah.
yeah.
He's in his car. All right.
I mean, it suggested basic stuff like listing all of your capital assets, which I think we almost have to do as a town. In order to track capital assets, you need to list them, but to also build out the condition.
Also, how do you get insurance coverage if you don't list your
Yeah,
assets?
right, right.
Yeah.
But it expands it out for what the condition of the asset is,
Mm-hmm.
what the maintenance program should be, and I haven't seen any such thing like that for Harwich yet. Maybe it exists, but it's something that would be the universe if possible.
Good topics to bring up at your meeting.
Yeah.
The last complete comprehensive report I saw of that was hand typed. I mean, it was that old. And,
Wow.
but I know also that Highway keeps all that information on as far as maintenance goes and what has to be done maintenance wise and that stuff.
Yeah,
They don't track anything as, like if someone says they want to just change the color and paint it a different color, or if they want to add,
right.
a new gymnasium or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. But as far as regular maintenance, Sean Libby and his crew keeps track of all of that stuff. So you could get a document from him if you needed it. And I'm sure that comes up during the discussions on capital outlay.
Right.
They also gave, didn't they give a, allocation, like, what percentage of the,
Yeah, they talked about guidelines as to what capital outlay should be as a percentage of the operating budget, which,
Yeah.
I mean, are just rough guidelines.
Yeah.
They're not really prescriptive.
We found back when we did it as selectmen, and when you're policymakers, that everything goes along great until you hit a school project, and then,
Right.
Well,
we
you
were
hit a bar- you
doing
hit a
$3 million, $3 million, $3 million, and then all of a sudden a $15 million
Yeah,
one
we had
hit
a
you.
big borrowing for something even other than
Right.
schools that people object to,
Yep.
Yeah.
When you get free cash, sufficient to fund all, if not, or at least most, if not all, the capital plan. It's like, let's just go do it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no, I know, it's just, gets to be that way.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion in that group about, for that webinar, as to, what kind of on a free cash basis, how much should be taken of that and socked away for, restricted it for,
I think that there was some discussion about not necessarily spending all of free cash on capital, but, allocating some of it towards operating reserves or
yeah,
cushion,
reserve, yeah.
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 which is
Stabilization.
why-
They used Town of Arlington as a, example. They had.
yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah,
for a lot of
and
reasons.
it was very dense. I mean, the material they covered was
Yeah,
really good.
good.
Really good.
Good, good.
The
I'm
guy
glad
from
you enjoyed it.
Arlington is also on the state committee, and he's been doing it for 45 years. I mean,
Yeah, I'm
he
definitely
knows
watching
his stuff.
Before
Me
the
too.
meeting on the 24th.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
But the other thing that comes to mind is looking at I watched the most of the select board meeting from Monday. And the budget message, which is mainly talking about the operating budget, that seems like it's gonna be put together as a level service sort of guidance, like don't ask for enhancements. And that's probably the spirit that we should try and aim for in the capital budget, that we're not looking to build new things. We're looking to maintain our assets because of the obvious financial challenges that are around the corner with the sewering debt service coming onto the operating budget. So I think the stance should be leaning against capital projects that would represent enhancements as opposed to maintaining.
Yeah, the first thing you do
service.
is have to see what's out there for capital plans, right, what people are
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
And then
But those are submitted by departments
Right.
with no filter.
Right,
basically.
right. Well, that's the whole idea, and
Yeah.
that's the work of your committee, quite
Yeah.
frankly, to take the pain and suffering off of this committee and others that you go through and sort it,
Yep.
and try and make some rationale of it. And maybe you have to classify things by certain buckets or categories and make it easier for the taxpayer to understand what the heck we're trying to commit to.
And also the cost of money right now. You know, it's expensive to borrow. So,
I'm gonna send this around.
We're not doing that yet.
Okay.
You just wait.
It's
Be
got
patient.
to do with the capital.
You haven't been
Oh.
hearing it. It has to do with the capital plan? All right.
Yeah,
So
one
this is-
page. I'll just refer to that one
All
page.
right.
thank you.
This is just to do with preparing for FY '26 budget, which will be the next one we go into. And if you look at the third page, I basically did what the capital plan is supposed to do in the charter. It's supposed to drop the first year and add the new year on the end, so I have a spreadsheet all set up to do that. And you can see in FY '26 what is actually planned there, left over from the budget, capital budget we just voted at town meeting. So that's just a preparation tool for setting it up to go with thing.
So in your list, you keep Brooks Academy in the 26 year, just because we didn't do it this year.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and by the way, there's no fall town meeting, so,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah. Okay, all right.
Right.
Fabulous. All right. The revolving accounts review process, what I want to lead that off with is Dana, back in the spring and during town meeting, was advocating for looking at the revolving account limits, the spending limits that are set in whatever article it is every year at town meeting, and some of the numbers are getting kind of big. We have looked in our analysis of the 204, we have looked at that, and we actually made a recommendation in that document to go to 20,000, I believe, to cover the program-specific expenses associated with that. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I want to remind everybody, including Dana, because you weren't at the June 24th joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, which is about communications, blah, 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 and you probably read the minutes. But from that meeting, it's very clear that our communication with the rest of the world in government goes through our liaison, who's Jeff Handler. And so we did the 204 document. All the information we asked for, we flowed through him. He did a good job, I think, of getting back what he could to us, and then we formulated it and put it into that document. So if we're going to do something, and I do want to hear about your interest in doing that and how you go about doing it, we need to flow the request through Jeff, yes, which is fine. And he's been doing that. For us, he did a pretty good job of getting answers in a timely manner. So that was just a precursor
Yep.
to all that. Go ahead. If you're still interested.
Yes, I have the article that we voted at town meeting,
Yep.
and it lists out all the stuff. And if you look on the fourth page of what I gave you, the left back page, that's kind of 204 Sisson. So as far as approaching all of these, it's well over $1 million and so forth. And the way these work is they get an authority, and then they wait for the money to come in, and they can start spending it, right? The way that municipal finance works in terms of budgeting, you have to set the number up front and have a source for it. So there is a 1 year difference between collecting it and spending it as you go, and having it to be able to put into a budget. So it's not like we can say, okay, well, we're gonna eliminate all of these, or bring them way down, and put $1.2 million into the budget, because we don't have $1.2 million. We do have a couple $100,000 that we get to work with probably every year. If you think about the child program, that was a article first, and then this year was voted $250,000 in the budget. Well, if you thought of Sisson Road as that kind of an amount, $250,000, it would cover their budget and be able to put in the operating budget. So
Well,
you'd have
except
to
we do have revenue from 204.
Right,
And that
but
should
the
go in the
revenue
operating
comes
budget.
after.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a
But you
timing
can,
issue.
right, yeah,
However, they collect those revenues monthly.
right. Which would help us the next year when we go to do another one. We would say, well, we can boost the revenue now because we have it, kind of deal. So you have to start with one. You
Yeah.
can't do them all at once.
You can't budget the revenue and expense, for instance, in fiscal '26?
You
Have
can.
no net impact on the rest
You
of the
can
budget?
legally, but this town has not done that traditionally. And we've basically been a town that's been conservative that way. We've said, once we bring the revenue in, we can declare it for next year, kind of deal. So usually when they start a new program, the selectmen will increase fees or start a new program or something. They don't say, okay, now we're gonna have the money to be able to do this and this and this. It's like the next year, they see how much money they've got coming in revenue. So we could buck that to tradition, but I think that's a tough thing to do, and it's not very financially conservative, because if the money doesn't come in, you're in trouble another way. So it's kind of like, there's a lag. We know we have a history now of the rents, so we could talk specifically about the rents. You know, is there any projected change coming in the rents, and you could probably declare that revenue. But as far as the whole package goes, it's gonna be one of these things that we bring them down
Okay, so
individually
I
over
think the
time.
idea here is to put together a plan.
Right.
Even if it looks like a 5-year capital plan that says, okay, we're gonna do these 2 this year, and then next year we're gonna do these.
Right.
You know what I mean? Kinda-
And that would
But
give,
then the important thing is what are the levels gonna be
right.
in the
yeah,
revolving accounts versus in an operating budget?
yeah, Right, and if you look at 204 Sisson, it's 300,000. Certainly 20,000 is a more appropriate number for their programs.
You think?
The rest of it's budget stuff. It's their phones
Gas
and
bill,
their.
the electric bill.
Right, and it should be in their operating budget. So I think that's the best one for us to start with. It's a way to start. I will check with our liaison Jeff, or through you, check with Jeff, because when we first started talking about this a couple of years ago, this committee voted me to appoint it, and Don Howell was voted by the selectmen to appoint it. I don't know if that's still how they want to function, but we should find that out. And that would give us a chance to go talk to each department that has a revolving fund and say, how are you using it? What do you see as changes? You know, what could go into the budget? What history do you have? That way, we're making good, solid recommendations on to what.
So, okay, so just so you know, at the June 24th meeting as well, if you go back and read the minutes, we specifically said, put the Board of Selectmen basically on notice that we were going to be looking at revolving funds.
Yeah,
And would come back with something at some
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
So that at least, if they pay attention to it, they know what's coming. My suggestion is whatever, and the first question, rightly so, send me something.
yeah,
We'll go to Jeff and say, okay, who's your guy?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And Dana get together with your guy and start working it, whether it's Don Hollow, whomever, and then
Yeah.
figure out what can be done.
yeah.
And I would suggest you need to get your work done before the end of this fiscal, calendar year,
Yeah.
to have any
Oh, I'll get
impact,
it
to have
done.
any impact,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm home now and retired. I can do it this month.
You're too busy fixing mailbox.
I
No, whatever, but I mean, I do think it's something that if you got the attention of the right people, you can get through pretty
Yes.
quickly,
Yeah.
right? And then
I mean,
come up-
and some of them are used for salaries, and there should be a discussion about whether that's more appropriate to have it in a budget or a revolving an account. There is specific language in the law that says you shouldn't use full-time positions in any revolving fund, but
Right.
you can use part-time. And this
Right.
would be the
Right.
seasonal person that helps run T-ball or something like
Well,
that.
it's the same with the 204. It's the person that gets hired because of program needs when they rent the auditorium, for instance, they need somebody to stand by and run the stuff for 2 hours.
Right. So, some clear guidelines on that should be discussed, and,
Okay, let's get that process started.
yep,
Okay.
I'll turn in a document to you, and you can share it and
Okay, fabulous.
go on from there.
All right, old business, the 204 Financial Road, System Road Financial Analysis Document. Correspondence says, late as this morning, I reached out to Jeff Handler, our liaison, today. We gave you we gave him that document 7 weeks ago, asking for validation of the numbers. The response I got back was, selectmen have talked about this on at least 2 occasions. And the one occasion they talked about, I think Julie wasn't there, she was on vacation or somewhere. And I think Jeff, as the vice chair, was running the meeting, and I know one of their members pushed back on it, like, I'm not even gonna read it, well, I don't think he was at the June 24th meeting to recognize that the selectmen said, yeah, okay, it's all right to do it. So they talked about it one other time. So his feedback to me was, okay, I'm tying Julie, the chairperson, into the loop, and let her respond to you. So I expect to hear something from Julie. In my opinion, if they say, okay, the numbers seem reasonable to us, then I think we just put our final stamp on and say we're done. And then they have it, and the recommendations are there. If they have a lot of things to change and whatnot, will tell us what that is, and then we can work the issue, you know. So that's all. Again, the intent was to try and consolidate in very simple form, quite frankly, the financial history of 204 and kind of to wrap it up. That's all. So with recommendations. So that's what that one was. Okay. And then we have another team that was supposed to be put together, and that was a team of 4 individuals.
Right.
To review FY 2024 actuals versus budget. And Bob is our representative to that. I think McCaskill was the Board of Selectmen representative. Finance director and town administrator. I was hoping Bob was going to be here tonight. I had not heard they have had a meeting, but they need to get on that fairly quickly. So what I will do is I will reach out again to our liaison and ask him what the status. Now, does anyone know, there was a target date, I think, that the interim finance director had of completing
Yeah.
7th.
on October 9th, the books for last year. Anybody know what that happened? Did
I
that come
thought it
up?
was the 7th.
Okay, whatever,
the
but it was
9th,
October
It's
something.
the past,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's a pass.
It didn't come up Monday night, did it?
I didn't watch the whole meeting yet, but it didn't come
Okay.
up in the first, it wasn't on the agenda, and it didn't come up in the first 2/3 of the meeting.
Okay, all right.
Might
So-
have been an update from the administrator at the end or something like that.
Maybe in the
I don't think,
administrator's
I
report.
don't think they filed for free cash yet, certification. I might be wrong, but that would be the precursor to just getting all the financial
Yeah.
information from
Yeah.
last year, so anyhow. Okay, any report from Alaska?
In addition to preparing the capital plan, the first 2 pages on this is the operating budget, just a blank column. The only thing we talked about was increasing the Finance Committee Reserve Fund. So that's the only thing I have in there, but as time goes on, we'll be filling that in, and you've got the historical data.
So
to
Dana,
back
refresh
that.
my memory on this, because last year we relied on you to put this together, and you volunteered to do it again, but. did
We're
one
gonna
of
work
us-
with, yeah, Michelle's gonna
Michelle,
work with
okay, I'm
me.
just making
So I'm
sure
gonna
that was
send
the
her
one,
the
right?
documents that I have, and she'll put together what she has, and then we'll make sure that we're on the same page, is what we're vowed to do,
Okay,
which we will do.
And the practice is that, again, go back to this level service budget that was described. It's been described in a couple of different select board meetings. is, I believe, assuming full employment, no vacancy savings.
All right, so here's what you end up getting.
Yeah.
We have openings. So I'm just picking on the town engineer. That position's been open for a while. Okay, if I remember right, there are 5 police officer positions. I think it's 5 that have not been filled. Maybe I'm wrong with the number. It could be one or the other. But we carry those in the budget. And by the way, when we don't fill them, that's what it contributes to free cash, does it not? You know what I mean? It's one of those things that seems very inefficient, right? The town the town engineer one is offset somewhat by having to subcontract out engineering services, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so that happens. But what you will see when we get a budget at some point in time, you'll see the budget request or recommendation from the town administrator, and then there'll be a column called EOS, Enhancement of Services. So let's just pretend, and I'm not saying this is the case, but if the fire department said they wanted to add 27 bodies for an enhancement of service, that's what would show up in that number. And then that becomes a great debate, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I mean, even a level service
Yeah,
budget is gonna have a significant increase to it because they've already voted employee contracts, and that's a large percent of the
Yeah.
budget. So, you know, everybody says we have to live within 2.5, which is correct. But it doesn't count new growth for the town, so that number gets added in. You know, so generally, we have been going along, instead of a 2.5% clip, we've been kind of going along at a 4% clip.
Is that what new growth usually adds to the tax receipts?
The totals of what we usually end up in that range rather than 2.5. So we are allowed to go up 2.5 by law, but we also have other things. So if you can keep at a level service budget and you didn't vote too big of contracts and your
Yeah.
health services and all those other things didn't go up too much, the cost of fuel, the cost of everything we do,
Well, I'm like,
electricity and all that will be in a level service
Yeah.
funded
It's
budget.
going up by 4%.
So you could be going up 3 to 4%, and then someone says, well, we didn't say any new services, but we have to do this, you know, there's always gonna be something in this enhancement of services.
as opposed to a level funded budget, which is, give me the same number I
Right.
had last year.
79 million.
Not necessarily by department, but in total.
Right,
And in that case, you'd be saying, okay, I want to use less of this and more of that, and you know what I mean, you'd be shuffling around
Yeah.
resources, that kind of
Well,
thing.
you could have a hybrid. You could have the positions with
course.
the obvious cost increases from contracts. And you could say 0 for the non-salary and make department managers make choices and stay within that lower target, in theory.
All part of the discussion.
Yeah.
yeah,
The other thing is, we used to have a practice in town, if you wanted a new position, you had to go to the voters to ask for it. So, we don't do that anymore. I don't mean we don't, I mean the town doesn't, so.
Right.
All right, other.
and, yeah,
Okay.
3 other things. I also did, the other document that I usually carry is the one-liners, and we already know that there's gonna be certain articles on there. So I have that sheet prepared too, and I'll send that to Michelle, and we'll discuss that one as well.
What's the one-liner? Sorry.
It's the warrant, just done it
There's
one line at
standard
a
things in the
time.
warrant. Like, for instance, unpaid bills from the previous year that you have to catch up with.
Yeah,
Sounds like boilerplate.
It's kind of
yeah,
normal,
yeah.
yeah, normal.
There's a-
We know
there's
there's
a-
an operating budget.
we know,
We
I got
that.
21 articles here
Those-
that
those
we
are-
probably know are gonna
So
be
if
in there.
nothing new happened, you'd have to
Yeah.
do at least those.
Yeah, and then, Mark and I talked about, and he's driving, so I don't wanna disturb him too much. Mark and I talked
He's not in the
about.
driver's seat, he's in the passenger's.
Oh, okay.
Unless
Oh,
he's
good.
driving in England or something.
Maybe he's in England.
Yeah, okay.
But I put together the reasons for those articles that we know we're gonna have, and Mark's agreed to try and attempt to do that this year, so I'll send him those, and we'll discuss
Okay.
that and go
All
on. I did have a finance committee meeting with the state finance committee, which was very good. The biggest thing for us was they have, the governor has submitted her supplemental financial supplement for this year's budget. and it's $719 million. About $600 million of that is reimbursable by the federal government, so it has to be there, but, and then the rest would be supplemental. The state for this year started or passed a millionaire tax. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I didn't happen to fall into that bracket, so I don't know that much about it myself, but they budgeted $1 billion. They did what we shouldn't do, right? We shouldn't say, well, we're going to make this much money, let's put some in there. They budgeted $1 billion for this new tax that they put in there and collected $2.2 billion.
Yep.
So they're over by $1.2 billion. Now, the way the statute reads is that that money would be divvied up between schools and roads. The roads part is easy for them. They said they would just make it Chapter 70 funds. So we may get a boost town by town by town by town of Chapter 70 funds. We usually been doing about 700,000. It might go up higher. We match that and we get 100% match. So if it's $1 million, we put in $1 million, you get $2 million worth of road coverage for $1 million.
So could that displace money in our own budget, or does it act incrementally?
No, it just means that you can maybe catch up on some of your roads that you've been falling further and further behind on, secondary roads especially. There is one asterisk on all this, and that is that they cannot certify the amount that they got in extra until the accountant certifies it, and the accountant isn't going to certify it until the legislature, the House and Senate, vote the supplemental budget. So
Makes sense.
there's a proposal in the supplemental budget to use $225 million of that money as closing a budget gap within the budget that the governor has put on the table. The state will decide whether, the House and the Senate will decide whether that should go into, the rainy day fund should do that, or as proposed, using part of this 1.2 billion extra. So it might be a little bit less, it might be $1 billion, but it's gonna go to the towns. And it doesn't say in the formula whether it should be 50-50 or not, so they'll have to decide also how much should go to the schools and how much should go to the towns. The schools one's a little bit trickier because it's gonna come in December sometime, the final figure, and they may do that as a circuit breaker kind of thing, or they might do it as a chapter, whatever their chapter is, funding. But it was a pretty interesting discussion, and
What do they think it's gonna be next year? What do they think that tax is gonna be next year?
I don't know if
I mean, you thinking this is gonna be $2.5 billion every year? I don't know.
I don't know either. But they were surprised by the 1.1 billion extra of what they guessed it would be, because they thought they were high at what there were people saying, you're putting too much money in here and so forth. So I just thought I'd pass that on. The
And then
MMA,
Just, you may not know this, but is the tax on people's income,
yes,
not on any assets or anything?
right,
just
yeah, income, yeah.
But on capital gains too? That's really the
No, I don't
situation.
think they touched capital gains. It was income, yeah. A lot of millionaires in Massachusetts, I guess. I don't know, they have a lot of income.
And the money that comes to Harwich, is that all adding to what we can spend, or does any of it actually result in less money that's needed from our taxpayers?
The Chapter 70 is all a match thing. Whatever they give us, we match it, you get double the amount.
So it could actually increase taxpayer-funded expenditures?
No, because you're probably not, well, in theory, you're not going to, we generally spend short-term money for that. We usually spend money that we have for
So we
that
could point to
700,000.
existing
Yeah,
spending
yeah.
to get that
Yeah.
matching fund.
There is another, the cherry sheet would be something that we could help reduce taxes, but Harwich, being the wealthy town that it is cherry sheet neutral, so we don't get a benefit from the cherry sheet. Like some towns get I know, there was one time when we worked in New Bedford that they got 106% of their school budget
Yeah.
in the cherry sheet.
That's crazy.
Not 100% of it, 106% of it.
I think Springfield's the same way, I mean, it's
Yeah, some of the
Fort
bigger
River.
towns get a good clip from the cherry. We used to get about $2 million and they've changed the formulas around and stuff, now we get zero. We send in a lot more lottery money than we get back, those kind of things. But the state, I don't know who's going to the state November 2nd meeting.
We're going,
I think
and Mark's going.
Mark's going, I'm gonna be there.
He goes our budget.
I think I'm running a table or something. No, I'm picked up by the state, so,
Yeah. That's good.
yeah.
Okay.
So, some real good speakers are planned for that, and there's still more openings if other people want to go. So, that concludes my stuff.
All right, any other?
I read an interesting article, I think it was in the Chronicle, about some towns in the Cape that share a school system that are negotiating for a new cost allocation model. It really wouldn't change the fundamental model, but instead of having it be each year's percentage of students attending, determining the percentage of cost, it would be a 3-year average, which sounded like a good idea just to make it more predictable. 3 times more predictable, I guess. I don't know if that would be something that would whether it's been difficult for us in terms of unpredictability, in terms of the percentage. If it's stable, it really doesn't do anything.
I think the problem is that when the original school district was formed, the ratio between the towns of, how many students they had
Yeah.
has changed dramatically
We've
since
gone
that
up.
original, we've gone up relative to Chatham, I mean,
Yeah.
so.
So
I
our
will
percentage
note that Mark Amoraz
is here
joining us in the meeting
for other.
for other,
Certainly.
or to turn off the unit at 6:37, just so we have that down. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Do you have any other?
Nope.
Okay, all right.
We talked about regional problems at this meeting, and we asked the western representatives, the western towns, what their biggest problem was, and they all said the schools, just the amount of, because of dropping populations, school populations, the towns have to pick up more and more of a percentage of the budget, and that's hurting the towns more and more. When the school's at 100 students, this budget goes up by this much, but when they lose 100 students, it doesn't go down by that much.
You get overhead.
It's, yeah.
You
So-
get principals,
Right,
administrators,
yeah.
and janitors, and, whatever, staff.
So they're dropping students, and that, in our western towns that are our size, we have a lot of similarities between the Cape towns and the western towns. Their biggest problem is schools.
Yeah.
They've kind of been through the sewering stuff, so we're going through that, but
Okay.
Yep.
Any other?
that's all I got.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, move aside to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. We will see you after Halloween.